You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for March 18th, 2025. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we have an exciting new investment opportunity for you. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. Hello, Blue Gal.
Hello, Driftglass.
Yeah, this week we welcome a new fake sponsor, which is our very own cryptocurrency, the Bosco Coin. And we have spared no expense hiring the very best AI service to help us write our pitch to investors.
And here we go. Quote, revolutionize your financial paradigm with Bosco, the disruptive, decentralized ecosystem leveraging quantum-resistant blockchain architecture. Whew. Bosco's proprietary neural consensus algorithm transcends traditional DEFI limitations, unlocking unprecedented liquidity dynamics.
Our hyper-deflationary tokenomic framework ensures sustainable growth while our AI-powered smart contracts seamlessly integrate with the metaverse economy. Bosco isn't merely an investment. It's a transformative digital asset class redefining wealth creation.
Early adopters access our exclusive staking protocol with compounding yield optimization. Don't remain tethered to legacy financial infrastructure while visionaries architect tomorrow's economy. Bosco, democratizing prosperity through algorithmic sovereignty. Join the financial revolution, unquote.
Now, Bosco could stand for Beyond Ordinary Systematic Crypto Optimization, but you know what? It doesn't at all. It stands for Buy Our Shitty Crypto, okay?
We hope everyone had a great St. Patrick's Day. And on topic, the Dropkick Murphys story that doesn't exist. Dropkick Murphys, the very Irish-American Celtic punk band formed in Quincy, Massachusetts in 1996, has recently trended for their anti-Trump stuff in concerts and in interviews. They are decidedly anti-fascist. An overshared and false story that Elon Musk suspended Dropkick Murphys from the Shitter platform for being anti-Trump is actually false. Dropkick Murphys left Shitter years ago, telling freelance writer Jacqueline Sweet this week, quote, we broke up with him first. We quit Twitter in 2022 when he was only half a Nazi, unquote. Thing is, some asshole was impersonating Dropkick Murphys on Shitter, and the real Dropkick Murphys complained and reported the impersonation, and Shitter suspended the fake Dropkick Murphys account. All right, everybody got that?
Got it.
But not before Forbes, Mediaite, News Nation, Variety, Patriot Ledger, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and Billboard had reported the false story that Elon suspended the Dropkick Murphys this week for their criticism of Trump. Now, here's the real drop kicker. An unpaid freelance writer, again, her name is Jacqueline Sweet, did what Forbes, Mediaite, News Nation, Variety, Patriot Ledger, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and Billboard did not do. She emailed the band. That's it. She emailed the band for a comment and got the truth that they had left in 2022 and had also complained to Shitter about a impersonating account. Mainstream media has gotten high on their own supply and cares more about viral clicks than truth. And they're just quoting each other all day long. But you guys knew that. And Jacqueline Sweet is my hero, and she's just one of thousands of heroes who do what they do freelance, hoping for a paycheck every day. So I'm going to reach out to our audience as Blue Gal, to all our Professional Left podcast listeners, and ask you to please, at a minimum, pick 3 outlets that do news and politics. Pick at least 3. Independent, not doing it for the money, but need to pay their rent or their vet bills or their furnace bills, and pay them $5 a month. That's less than dinner at Domino's with the coupons.
Yeah.
And why should you do that? Because you have to. We all have to.
Yeah.
And I admit one of the Substacks that I pay is a knitting one, because what they do matters to me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one is political, and of course I donate time to other outlets as well. Mm-hmm. But we all have to pitch in and help out people who are looking for the truth and reporting it.
Yeah, because no one's going to do it for us.
No, and there's a lot of people that aren't doing it. They're just saying, "Oh, well, this sounds good. This will get hits."
Yeah,
and you know, even if their motives are good, they're not double checking their sources. They're repeating what Mediaite says, and I mean, we're guilty of that at Crooks and Liars too. I know that, but we really need to be careful. And sometimes it's a matter of just doing an email to somebody and finding out what's going on.
Yeah. And that's, used to be called journalism.
Yeah.
When people used to literally run down the street, I'm sure they still do, in shoe leather, chasing down stories, going up into buildings, interviewing grieving parents. That's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the hell that happens sometimes on the local level, but the legacy media is just fucked. And, the news all weekend has been awful. Yeah. Honestly, but one of the most deflating developments was the capitulation by 7 Senate Democrats, which gave Republicans enough votes to meet the 60-vote threshold to put their poison pill-laced continuing resolution on the floor, where it passed this week on 54 to 46 near party line vote. And this is from NPR. Quote, "I think there is a deep sense of outrage and betrayal, and this is not just progressive Democrats. This is across the board, the entire party." And that's what New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez told reporters Thursday night at a party retreat in Leesburg, Virginia. "I think it's a huge slap in the face," she said. "This betrayal was led by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. So you and I, Blue Gal, are going to talk about this today, but probably from a different angle than most people here are going to hear it elsewhere. Because we're going to no fair remembering stuff the crap out of this thing. And to do that, we're going to start in February of 2021. And if that sounds familiar, that's the day that 7 Republican senators crossed the aisle to vote with Democrats to impeach Donald Trump for the second goddamn time. And that vote failed to meet the 2/3 majority threshold, which would have removed Trump from office, barred him from holding any future office, and spared all of us the goddamn nightmare we're living through now. Because, and this is entirely because of Mitch McConnell, because despite giving a good imitation of an impassioned speech, in the end, soulless husk Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell decided to take the coward's way out when he refused to vote for impeachment, and he refused to whip his caucus for enough votes to impeach Donald Trump.
Right. In private, of course, Republican leadership knew full well what kind of a monster they had on their hands.
Yeah.
But after a minute or two of virtue signaling, they collapsed back into the posture of cowardice and cynicism, which has defined the modern Republican Party. This is from the New York fucking Times, April 21st, 2022. Quote, "I've had it with this guy." GOP leaders privately blasted Trump after January 6th. In the days after the attack, Representative Kevin McCarthy planned to tell Mr. Trump to resign. Senator Mitch McConnell told allies impeachment was warranted, but their fury faded fast. The confidential expressions of outrage from Mr. McCarthy and Mr. McConnell, which have not been previously reported, illustrate the immense gulf between what Republican leaders say privately about Mr. Trump and their public deference to a man whose hold on the party has gone virtually unchallenged for half a decade. The leader's swift retreat in January 2021 represented a capitulation at a moment of extraordinary political weakness for Mr. Trump. Perhaps the last and best chance for mainstream Republicans to reclaim control of their party from a leader who had stoked an insurrection against democracy itself. Unquote. We do know why, right? We know it's Win Red.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
He owns the lists and he owns the fundraising mechanism for all of them. Not to mention he's probably got blackmail on half of them.
And the other maddening thing is, this is an open secret.
Yeah.
This is not a well-kept secret that behind closed doors, a large percentage, perhaps a bare majority of Republican elected officials fucking hate Trump.
Yep.
Because they want to be the dictator. They don't want him to be ordering them around. They're authoritarians. They want to do the ordering around. But they're all cowards. All of them are cowards. Well, half of them are cowards and half of them are fanatics. And I'm sure there's some overlap with racism and authoritarianism, et cetera. So instead of doing the right thing, Mitch McConnell took the time-tested approach of ignoring the problem and hoping it would just go away on its own. You know, it's kind of very WASP of him. Just suppress it, pretend it's not there, and hope it goes away. This is from the Washington Post, September 21st, 2022. Quote, unchecked book excerpt inside McConnell's decision not to convict Trump. Let's just ignore him, the Senate GOP leader said at one point, underscoring his hands-off approach on whether to stand up to pro-Trump lawmakers after the January 6th attack on the Capitol, unquote. And, you know, if ignoring the monster they created didn't work, well, who are you going to call every time Republicans fuck things up and don't have the moral courage to fix what they've broken? Who do you think? This is from the same April 21st New York fucking Times article from 2022. Quote, the Democrats are going to take care of the son of a bitch for us, McConnell said, referring to the imminent impeachment vote in the House, unquote.
And now, by a darkly hilarious quirk of history, 7 is also the number of Democratic senators. Well, there's 6 and 1 independent who caucuses with Democrats, who, instead of crossing the aisle to stand up to Trump, have crossed the aisle to join with 100% of Republican senators to invest Donald Trump with virtually dictatorial powers. They're signing Washington, D.C.'s death warrant, along with a list of other horrible things. For future reference, the senators who sold us out and sold out their House colleagues who voted the right way are John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, our very own Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, to his everlasting shame, Brian Schatz of Hawaii, Gary Peters of Michigan, Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Maggie Hassan and Jean Shaheen of New Hampshire, and Angus King, the Maine independent who caucuses with Democrats.
And the leader of this cadre of craven weaklings was, as you already know, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Because Schumer is a creature shaped by the ancient mores and folkways of a beltway culture which no longer exists, and which honestly by all rights should have died when they put good old David Broder in the ground. The culture of high Broderism in which it was acceptable for Republicans to lie and sabotage with, as Steve Bannon wrote back in 2009, no apparent interest in being a credible governing partner and no intention to negotiate honestly. But it was unpardonably rude, perhaps even a fainting offense, for Democrats to point this out. As I wrote of David fucking Brooks a short time ago, even though, just like the rest of us, Schumer has had his nose repeatedly rubbed on the fact that the old gods are dead, unlike the rest of us, Schumer is still paying obeisance to this long dead god of one-sided compromise in a temple which has long since fallen to rubble. Schumer is a creature of backslapping, backroom deal-making, where there's always a shitty bipartisan compromise to be found somewhere. He is one of the last of a species that's going extinct, but doesn't realize they're already doomed, who doesn't know how to function in a world where Trump could possibly exist, and where all of his friends on the right have either retired or died or gone full fascist, but who are equally incapable of understanding that it's long past time to step aside and let the new people fight this new fight. And the thing is, above almost anyone else, Chuck Schumer should fucking well know better.
Yeah, he should, because as we record this, we are just days away from the 22nd anniversary of George W. Bush's Iraqi debacle. His ill-conceived war of conquest, which was launched on March 20th, 2003, on the basis of a mountain of lies, and which ended up being the greatest American military debacle since Vietnam. But Bush's Iraqi debacle would never have gotten out of the gate without the 2002 Authorization for Use of Military Force Against Iraq resolution. And the day after the House passed the AUMF, the Senate followed suit and by a vote of 77 to 23 gave Bush their official okay to go forth and conquer. And one of the 29 Democrats who voted to give Bush permission to do whatever the fuck he wanted to do was Chuck Schumer. Of course, a lot of Democrats made the same mistake, including John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden. In fact, it's fair to say that had Barack Obama not been able to point to the position he publicly took against the war.
I don't oppose war in all circumstances, and when I look out over this crowd today, I know there is no shortage of patriots or patriotism. What I do oppose is a dumb war.
Us rushing headlong into a war unilaterally was a mistake and may still be a mistake. If it has happened, then at that point what the debate's really going to be about is what's our long-term commitment there.
Had he not been able to do that, Hillary Clinton may well have been the party's 2008 nominee. And had Obama not blessed Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton by making them his vice president and secretary of state respectively, it's quite possible that neither one of them could have overcome the stigma of their Iraq war vote enough to win the party's nomination for president. He actually saved their reputations.
Mm-hmm.
However, today, that's not the point.
Nope.
And we are not looking back at what Democrats did.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are specifically asking the question, what should Schumer have learned from the last time he voted to hand a lying and dangerously incompetent Republican president a blank check?
Good question,
because he
Blue
did
Gal.
it before.
Yes, he did. He sure as hell did.
And thanks to his own public comments, we have the answer to that question. This is from the AP. Quote, 20 years on, reflection and regret on 2002 Iraq war vote. Another yes vote on the Senate floor that night was New York Senator Chuck Schumer, now Senate Majority Leader, with the vote coming a year after September 11th devastated his hometown. He says he believed then that the president deserved the benefit of the doubt when a nation is under attack. Of course, with the luxury of hindsight, it's clear that the president bungled the war from start to finish and should not have ever been given that benefit, Schumer said in a statement. Now, with the war firmly behind us, we're one step closer to putting the war powers back where they belong, in the hands of Congress, unquote. Really, Chuck?
Uh-huh.
With the luxury of hindsight of Trump's first term, and everything he has said and done since then, especially in the past few weeks, it is 1,000% obvious to anyone with a pulse and a conscience that he should never, ever have been given the kinds of powers embedded in this continuing resolution.
Yeah, because in addition to war stuff, Congress has the power of the purse and the power to enact legislation and the power to create and dispose of departments and committees. And by turning virtually all of that power over to Elon Musk, which is what this CR does, he's handing another incompetent, reckless, and racist and lunatic president a fucking blank check. So what exactly did Chuck Schumer get in exchange for selling out his party and his country? Well, he did earn the most bankrupt currency in politics. He got himself a handful of good doggy points from Grandpa Syphilis, just days after Grandpa Syphilis said this about Chuck Schumer. Quote, Trump has decided that Chuck Schumer is not Jewish anymore. The American presidency is a powerful position, but it does not include the power to decide who is and who is not Jewish, unquote. So way to go, Chuck. And he appears to have succeeded in getting a huge swath of the fractious and demoralized Democratic base to unite around a single issue. And that single issue is getting Chuck Schumer the fuck out of Senate leadership. So way to go, Chuck. Hell of a job.
Yeah. And I can't, I just shrugged my shoulders.
Yeah.
I can't defend him.
Nope. No, there's no defense of it. There's no defense of Dick Durbin.
No,
Durbin
there isn't.
He's too old to be in this war. He's not built for this. These guys are built like machines. This is like trying to run a car from the 1940s, you know, that runs on regular gas and the parts are all gone. In a universe where electric vehicles are everywhere and gas vehicles have vanished. They don't fit anymore. They don't function anymore, and they don't have the good timing, the good grace, or respect for us, the voters, or the country to step the fuck out of the way. Nancy Pelosi at least did that. She stepped out of leadership and gave it to Hakeem Jeffries.
Right.
But these old assholes, man, they just won't leave. And it is shameful that this is true, but this is where we are.
Well, Driftglass, let's lighten things up a little bit and have you talk about Glenn Greenwald for a few minutes.
Yes, for just a few minutes. Thank you very much. Let's clear the stage.
Well, I do limit our Glenn Greenwald. We have had many Glenn Greenwald free podcasts.
We have in a row.
So in a row. So I'm going to give you this will not end. I promise you, this will not end up on the cutting room floor as some of your other Glenn Greenwald rants have been shortened. This is your platform. Tell us, and actually, it's pretty funny what's happened to Glenn Greenwald. But
yeah. Well, as you know, Blue Gal, I gave up Glenn Greenwald for Lent, but I'm relenting because this. I think it was Zipley, alert reader Zipley, who sent this along to me, and it just requires a little bit of a buildup. So, I have written about Glenn Greenwald once or twice, but what I wrote about Mr. Greenwald can be divided into two discrete phases. Now, the first phase was during the Obama administration, during and after the Edward Snowden thing. And I wrote about how Greenwald was now lying, just outright lying with alarming frequency, holding other people to incredibly high standards that he just flatly refused to meet himself, and generally just attacking anyone who questioned him in the slightest as a drooling, jackbooted Obot fascist, and sicking his swarm of Greenwald Avengers on anybody who stepped out of line. It was very Stalinist. And this got me blackballed as a drooling, jackbooted Obot fascist by a fair chunk of the liberal blogosphere, which cut my blog traffic by a lot and cut my income, frankly, by a substantially painful amount. But I kept doing it because he kept lying and he kept behaving this way and wouldn't fucking stop. It only got worse and worse and worse. So after a while, the second phase kicked in, which was after all of that had happened, as Greenwald started showing up on Fox News as Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingram's wacky sidekick, repeating Russian talking points, attacking the left as the real threat to democracy. That's what he really enjoyed doing. And I wrote maybe one or two or maybe 20, I admit, I told you so posts and said, if you want to line up to apologize for fucking me over and being completely wrong about everything I tried to warn you about, line forms on the left. And the number of Greenwald fanboys coming around to call me names dropped to very nearly zero. So, in light of that buildup, this was Fox News promoting Glenn Greenwald on their station 6 years ago. Quote, liberal Glenn Greenwald rips mainstream media for spreading false propaganda. Unquote. Liberal Glenn Greenwald. What you may not know is these days, because, who in their right mind follows Fox anymore on a day-to-day basis, except Media Matters and people doing God's work like that. Greenwald is on Fox and Fox-adjacent propaganda networks constantly. He's on with Jesse Waters. He's on with Laura Ingraham. He's on with Megyn Kelly. He's on the Will Cain show. He's everywhere. And once Greenwald became one of Tucker Carlson's sock puppets and a regular on Laura Ingram's White Power Hour, this was how he was presented to the audience, as liberal Glenn Greenwald, who had finally seen the error of his ways. He was repentant. He was remorseful. And he was there to say, as a liberal insider, to tell you all the terrible stuff that we liberals were secretly up to. Just reinforce this bigoted moron audience's every prejudice and paranoid thing. That was his value to them, to be the liberal who told the meatheads that they were right all along about people like you and me, Blue Gal. And this was for me 4 years ago. This was for me. I'm writing now about something I said 4 years ago on one post out of 100 or more I've written about Greenwald since the Obama years. And this is me quoting me. As long as Fox News remains a profitable white nationalist enterprise, it will never lack for an audience of millions of who are eager to say, see, we're not crazy. Even liberal Glenn Greenwald agrees with us. And then I said, perhaps someday our credulous liberal brothers and sisters will finally learn to stop handing their hard-won liberal credibility over to a passel of frauds, unquote. Well, that day has not yet dawned, Blue Gal. They continue to invest a whole lot of hope and money in people who do not deserve it. Now, here was how Greenwald was earning his Fox News ducats back in January of this year. Quote, Glenn Greenwald, only the elites are petrified of Trump. Independent journalist Glenn Greenwald weighs in on what President Donald Trump's flurry of executive orders means for the elites. On
You mean Glenn Greenwald said, I'm an independent?
He sure as hell. Well, they said that about him.
Uh-huh.
And this was on Jesse Waters' prime time. So you know it's credible, right? So that's unquote. On Jesse Waters' prime time. Now, notice that Greenwald is no longer a liberal. Mm-hmm. Because to make the story work, they need him to be an independent journalist. So that's what they called him. That's what they made him. He will be whatever they need them to be to collect his money and his camera time from the scumbags at Fox. And now this week, Blue Gal from Raw Story, sad news. Sad news about Glenn Greenwald.
Uh-oh.
Here's the headline. Fox viewers attack Greenwald for turning against Trump. Oh, no. He turned on them. This first paragraph is epic. It's art. It's going up. I would like you to needlepoint me this headline so I can have it with me for years to come. Quote,
I can promise you that never.
Oh, even though I repaired your needle-pointing thingy, you will not do this for me. Okay,
Nope.
fine. That, by the way, is a small woodworking project that we'll talk about on a different podcast.
Yeah, he repaired my embroidery frame.
I did.
Which is made of wood, and he did a very good job.
And I'm damn proud of it. I have scrap wood and just spit, and I MacGyvered the hell out of it.
Yes, you did.
Anyway, quote, Fox News viewers lashed out at conservative pundit Glenn Greenwald after he defended Mahmoud Khalil, a pro-Palestinian activist who President Donald Trump has singled out for deportation, unquote. Conservative pundit Glenn Greenwald.
Wow. So he's gone on a journey, Driftglass.
Well, not really. Just the labeling of him has gone on a journey. And
yeah.
Oh, how I have waited to hear those words, conservative pundit Glenn Greenwald. Because think about this, if they called him liberal or independent, then Fox couldn't provoke a sense of betrayal in their audience.
Yeah.
Because they already hate those guys. They hate us liberals. They hate independents. Those people are already on the outside of the tent pissing in and are not to be trusted and never were to be trusted. But by billing him as a conservative pundit, Fox can tell its viewers that one of the people they trusted has sold them out. And what makes it extra special is that Howard Kurtz, who will do anything for $1, got caught in the shrapnel. Howard Kurtz has been on every side of every critique of the media for decades. Steve Gilliard used to refer to him as Mr. Kurtz, the character, the character from Heart of Darkness, because he would do anything for $1. He's been all over everything, and now he's on the other side of this. And so this was a comment about Howie Kurtz doing what he did, which was lining up with Glenn Greenwald. Quote, filthy waste of viewers' time was anti-Trump advocate Howard Kurtz joining forces with fellow hater, the smirking Glenn Greenwald. Geez, sounds like me writing like that.
Wow. Yeah.
To trash Trump as they celebrate their apparent mutual martyred hero, Mahmoud Khalil, one popular conservative wrote on X. Kurtz gushing to Greenwald is suspiciously telling, unquote. Which is a weird sentence construction, kind of dumb. But yeah, they have used him up like a dirty postcard. Everything they needed him to do, they chewed all the flavor out of that bubble gum. And I don't know what his future is there, because now he has crossed a line, Blue Gal. Now he's a conservative pundit.
He's now on the outs.
He's a conservative pundit who has betrayed them. And really, where is there for him to go except
CNN?
News Nation? Yeah, CNN, News Nation.
I have no doubt.
The time slot after Andrew Cuomo, I think, is open. So, you can go there.
Yeah, News Nation. Sure. Speaking of the media and from the other end of the spectrum, this is from Margaret Sullivan, who some of you may know is the former media columnist for the Washington Post and the 5th public editor of the New York Times. New York fucking Times. Also, she's the first woman to hold the position of public editor. In that role, she reported directly to Arthur Sulzberger Jr. as the reader's representative. So remember that. Mm-hmm. She reported directly to Arthur Sulzberger Jr.
The publisher of the paper.
Publisher of the New York fucking Times. Right. And this is from her newsletter yesterday. Quote, as Donald Trump continued his chaotic and destructive march through a second term, the New York Times had a few choice words for what he's doing, and as they promoted an audio offering. Ready? Trump's new charm offensive. I posted the full headline on social media, Trump's new charm offensive, asking, really, New York Times? And one respondent said she was so upset when she saw it earlier that day she canceled her subscription over it. That seems extreme since the Times has done a lot of very good reporting in recent weeks, but the headline does seem quite unhinged from reality. And it makes me wonder why no one stopped to question or change it. It represents the soft focus presentation we see all too often that may well be an intentional business strategy on the part of the Times. Everybody invited into the big tent. Here's another David Sanger piece, and again, this is still Margaret Sullivan writing. A David Sanger piece about how Trump's policies supposedly would restore America's manufacturing economy. Sanger is excellent and deeply experienced, and the piece itself, mostly about Trump's tariffs, is well reported. The headline, Trump's big bet, Americans will tolerate economic downturn to restore manufacturing. As one Times reader aptly commented, the headline here is misleading. None of Trump's current policies will do anything to bring back manufacturing. Quite the opposite. So treating Trump's hypothesis as even remotely plausible is a massive disservice. Why does the Times too often normalize Trump like this, even now? Now, again, I want to remind everyone, Margaret was in I assume, daily contact with Arthur Sulzberger Jr. when she was public editor of the New York Times. Mm-hmm. Okay? And what she writes here is, readers, your thoughts? Let me know. I have some theories hinted at above and probably to be further developed in a separate post, unquote. Well, I would like to suggest that she pretend for just a moment that she's a freelancer.
Well, and can I suggest something that the distance between her talking about who knows why the Times are doing this is so weird.
I have some theories.
What do you guys think is so many miles, so many parsecs away from Keith Olbermann saying, here's what went on at MSNBC behind closed doors. This is the name of the guy. Here's the asshole. Here's his mommy. Here's who got fired. And here's what they said. This is why everything's fucked at MSNBC. Period.
Here's how long it took me to walk from the elevator to his office. Yes. Great detail. Right.
And I assume Mags Sullivan, who I like, who has done good things, has that information somewhere in her book, or in her mind. But, anyway, continue on.
Well, I assume she also has a checklist for her newsletter that includes you must request engagement.
Right.
Because engagement increases time spent on her website.
Yeah.
So, this is the similar to the like and subscribe thing. That's what it is. So, Ms. Sullivan was a journalist at the Washington Post and the New York Times for decades, as well as public editor at the Times. And like I said, we're assuming she had one-on-one contact with the Times publisher on a regular basis. She probably still has his number on her phone. So why in the name of Breslin and Royko is she asking her readers for their thoughts on the motives behind the Times publishing these really, truly horrible headlines?
Yeah.
And again, you and I have said, first of all, she's got to ask for engagement. And secondly, she's covering up for them.
It certainly feels like it.
Yeah.
Or just edging up as close to talking openly about exactly why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
I recall when they jumped in the head of the RNC the day after she got fired into becoming an NBC employee.
Right.
And
right.
At that moment, that was too much for even Chuck Todd to deal with.
Yeah, right.
And he went out and said, management has made a terrible mistake. This shouldn't have happened. And they put you, Kristen Welker, in a terrible position, and naughty bad on them. I mean, even Chuck Todd was willing to name names of people who were on the decision tree that brought this down. So when it comes to asking her readers their thoughts, how the fuck would they know? That's not the point of this conversation. Also, as liberal bloggers have already spent 20 years theorizing why the Times and the rest of the legacy media are so addicted to both sides do it crap and are so prone to go soft and belly up when confronted with belligerent Republican fuckery.
Right.
So, instead of coyly trying to crowdsource speculation about a question to which, as a former member of the Times inner circle, you should damn well know already, why don't you tell us in plain, clear language using your newsletter why Schulzberger is doing this?
Yeah.
Or if you don't know, you could try engaging in that thing, journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And do what none of the rest of us have the standing to do, which is call him directly and ask him why he's doing this.
Yeah.
That would be really helpful.
Yep.
Why are you so scared to do that? I thought you were a journalist. I thought journalists were fearless.
What have you told your headline writers to do? Yeah. She hints that this is a business decision.
Right.
And the really sad assumption in all of this, is that the Trump White House only reads the headlines.
Sure.
And so, in some respects, this is actually subversive to simply put Trump-friendly headlines over articles that actually criticize Trump, to keep him off our backs.
Yeah.
And that's Occam's razor. That's the most obvious reason that it could be. But Margaret Sullivan needs to stop being so coy.
Absolutely.
And we know who she is and who she has contact with. And to just crowdsourcing is not a good look for you, Margaret Sullivan.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's okay if you want to talk about the font size at the New York Times and ask readers, print versus web, if you have those kind of questions. But content questions like this, no. So our Blue Sky post of the week comes from New Yorker cartoonist Mark Thompson. Quote, "We all know the alternate timeline with Kamala Harris as our president would feature none of the government destruction or democracy threatening, but would be covered by our political press with 10 times the panic they are currently displaying concerning Trump's wannabe dictatorship."
Oh, God, yes.
Unquote.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every
They'd
day.
be losing their minds every day.
Why won't Harris lead, Blue Gal?
Why won't Harris lead?
Yep. What is she hiding? Why is she being this way? Why won't she have a drink with Mitch McConnell? Why won't she blah, 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 blah? Why won't she reach out to Trump voters? They're almost half of this country. Why won't she reach out to them? They have opinions, and here's 15 pages of their fucking opinions from an Ohio diner.
Yeah. And don't forget, if the Republicans hold the House, how many House Oversight Committee investigations can the Harris White House handle?
Right.
All of them.
And why are they covering it up? What are they hiding if they're not willing to, et cetera, et cetera? And that's not just Fox News and Glenn Greenwald. That would have been the entire legacy media for four fucking years.
That would have definitely been the New York Times headlines, for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of news and headlines.
All right. Driftglass, let's do a news roundup.
Oh, if you insist, Blue Gal, if you insist.
From the Seattle Times, Musk is contending that hordes of dead people are listed as alive in the Social Security databases because he has access to the Social Security databases, apparently.
Yeah.
And if you're not on fire about that, I have no hope for you. So, and Musk is saying that these dead people are fraudulently still drawing benefits, which the Social Security director disputes.
Yeah.
So here's the Seattle Times article about a guy named Mr. Johnson. Johnson is 82 and still kicking. Yet sometime last month, someone or something led Social Security to both tag him as dead and start clawing back his benefits. Johnson's strange trip through the netherworld began in February, when a letter from his bank arrived addressed to his wife, Pam. We recently received notification of Leonard A. Johnson's passing, it began. We offer our sincerest condolences. At first, she figured it was a scam. Her husband, after all, was sitting right there. But then the bank got to the point. We know this is a difficult time, and we're here to help, the bank wrote. We received a request from Social Security Administration to return benefits paid to Leonard A. Johnson's account after their passing. There's nothing you need to do. We've deducted the funds from Leonard A. Johnson's account. It itemized how $5,201 had been stricken from their bank account on the grounds that Ned wasn't justified to get those benefits because he was dead. That was for payments he'd received in December and January. Now, Driftglass, you and I both know people who would not eat if that happened.
Oh, yeah. And
whose bank account would be overdrawn, whose checks would bounce, who wouldn't be able to pay for their housing. That would be it.
And we both know people who would not be able to summon the support system or the focus or the wherewithal to climb through the bureaucracy.
To fix this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so here's how he ultimately did, we think, fix it. Ned found that his February Social Security check hadn't been paid, and he's yet to receive his March check either. His Medicare insurance had been canceled.
Jeez.
Again, that's a death sentence for some people. He also learned that when you die, your credit score gets marked as deceased, do not issue credit, which makes it tough to get a loan. He called the bank first, and they said an electronic notification had been triggered on February 18th, that he had died back in November. But I'm on the phone with you right now, he told them. Also, what did I die of? Take it up with Social Security, they said. What followed was a nearly 3-week battle to resurrect himself. He called Social Security 2 or 3 times a day for 2 weeks. At this point, I would have had a heart attack. I swear to God.
Well, it's identity theft.
It's identity theft, and it's his last name is Johnson, and they didn't check the number, or it's Doge. We don't know what it is. We still don't know what it is. But he called Social Security 2 or 3 times a day for 2 weeks, with each call put on hold and then eventually disconnected. Finally, someone answered and gave him an appointment for March 13th. Then he got a call delaying that to March 24th. In a huff, he went to the office on the 9th floor of the Henry Jackson Federal Building downtown. It's one of the buildings proposed to be closed under what the AP called a frenetic and error-riddled push by Elon Musk's budget-cutting advisors. It was like a Depression-era scene, he said, with a queue 50 deep jockeying for the attentions of 2 tellers. The employees were kind but beleaguered. They are so understaffed down there, he said. They think the office is about to be closed down, and they don't know where they're going to go. It feels like the agency's being gutted. After waiting for 4 hours, Johnson admits he jumped the line. I saw an opening, and I kind of rushed up and told them, I'm listed as dead. That seemed to get their attention. Once in front of a human, Johnson said he was able to quickly prove he was alive, using his passport and his gift of gab. They pledged to fix his predicament. And on Thursday this past week, the bank called to say it had returned the deducted deposits to his account. As of Friday morning, he hadn't received February or March's benefits payments, unquote. Now, I want you to imagine this happening to 1 million MAGAs.
Yep. In their 80s.
And what's going to happen to this country when the people who built a hang Mike Pence put the rope up on January 6th to hang Mike Pence, what they're going to do when they don't get their check, or when their mom doesn't get her check.
Or when you have the knock-on effect of, oh, and by the way, your insurance has been canceled too.
Right.
And your credit rating has been reduced to 0 because you're dead.
Right. You can't charge anything to your credit card because your credit rating says you're dead too.
Yeah. What's going to happen?
Or you're overdrawn at the bank, so your credit rating just took a 200-point hit.
Yeah, and your Social Security office where you would take these complaints is closed. So I assume they're going to blame Barack Obama and Joe Biden. But once they get past that, maybe they can take a look at taking their pitchforks and torches down the block a little bit and speak to the Republican representatives who voted to give Elon Musk unlimited power and Donald Trump unlimited power to do this to them.
And the 7 Democrats as well, including our senator.
Yeah.
And I like the guy on Blue Side guy who said, congratulations, Republican House members, you're going to be the Social Security customer service line.
That's right. That's right. Well, if they ever hold another town meeting, sure. If they ever answer the phones, sure. But they're hiding out. They're hiding out.
And Donald Trump isn't going anywhere where they don't have metal detectors. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A quick sidebar. I heard of this thing. I will research it further. It's called like binding through depravity or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it means that when you're in the mob or when you're a Nazi, the way they get you to stay is by committing atrocities conditional to your membership.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So now you're part of it. Yeah. And now you can't afford to ever lose again. Right. You can't afford to let the Allies win the war, because then they'll find out all the horrible shit we did, and then we're all dead.
Right.
So you now have your back against the wall, and you have to fight like a cornered rat to never give up power, because if that ever happens, they're going to find out all the heinous shit you got up to. And that's really what the Republican House and Senate have committed themselves to.
Right.
Supporting things that are so grotesque and so depraved that they don't dare ever lose power, because if they did, they're going to end up, I think courtroom would be the lightest thing that would happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, this is from today.com. Teacher ordered to remove signs from classroom, including one saying everyone is welcome here. Quote, an Idaho teacher is in a standoff with her own school district after officials order her to remove classroom signs, including one that reads, everyone is welcome here. Sarah Inama, a 6th grade teacher at Lewis and Clark Middle School in Meridian, Idaho, says she won't comply with the order, arguing that the message is a fundamental part of ensuring a positive learning environment for her students. Inama, who has taught at the school for 5 years, says her commitment to inclusivity isn't about politics, it's about her passion for education and students. Unquote. What a monster, Blue Gal. What an awful monster she is.
Trump's Department of Homeland Security just deported a surgeon from Brown University Medical School who is here legally on an H-1B visa that doesn't expire until 2027, and they have committed no crimes. Trained in the U.S. at Ohio State, University of Washington, and Yale as a transplant surgeon, which is one of the most difficult surgical fields in all of medicine. She's a highly trained doctor on kidney transplants. If you need a kidney transplant, you're in really bad shape.
Yep.
And she cannot be easily replaced. Her phone was seized at the border. A federal judge handed down an injunction against her deportation, but she was already deported on a plane en route to Paris. So, Trump just said, oopsie, like he said about those people who had to be sent to El Salvador. Brown's kidney transplant clinic is now strained by her deportation.
Yeah.
You can't delay a kidney transplant.
No. And I sincerely hope anyone whose kidney transplant is being threatened or delayed is told in no uncertain, clear, bright terms exactly why this happened.
Yep, and it's Donald Trump's fault that this happened.
Exactly. And
Republican Party's fault that this happened.
They did this to you.
Yep. And I'm getting real tired, by the way, of folks on social media finding ways to blame the Democratic base for anything that's happening here.
Yeah. No, the base show, people who stayed home or thought it wasn't important enough or thought it was both sides or I'm an independent.
Wanted to fantasize about a primary last summer or, if you want to have a personal battle with Ezra Klein online,
go for it.
I can scroll right past that and not care.
Have a happy time.
That's your dorm room conversation. Mm-hmm. Have fun. But to pretend that the Democratic base didn't fight hard enough or that the Democrats somehow made all these mistakes. The Democrats raised $1 billion for Kamala Harris and worked their hearts out.
Yeah.
And so I got no time for any of our so-called allies who want to blame Democrats for doing anything wrong during the election. I just have no patience for that.
Yeah. And I did hear one focus group person, Never Trump focus person. This is many weeks ago, maybe many months ago, saying that on his worst day, Joe Biden was better than Donald Trump on his best day by a mile, by several miles. There's no comparison between the two. And then, of course, she went into, however, these voters, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, but the Democrats. And if we start doing that to ourselves.
Not the Democrats.
Say it then. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's not but the Democrats. It's but these uninformed, both sides do it, centrist voters who flipped on them don't know that or don't care about that or aren't paying any attention to it. So, and we have to sort of focus on them and understand what motivated them. Like, let's stop for a minute and think about what you just said, which is you acknowledge as a recently former Republican that Joe Biden at his worst would make a far better president by parsecs than Donald Trump. How is it that these morons you're interviewing don't see that? Let's ask that question as opposed to asking them about egg prices or what they think of inflation. Because all that is telling anyone is that Democrats need to message better. Yeah. No, Democrats message just fine. 75 million of us showed up on time to do the thing we are supposed to do, and we contributed money, and we wrote postcards, and we raised $1 billion. The problem is those voters. And those voters have been brainwashed to the point of enfeeblement, to the point of being toddlers, unable to think for themselves. That's the problem. So let's focus on what broke those people and who's responsible for that, rather than saying, well, if Kamala Harris had just showed up one more time, if she just done Joe Rogan, if she just done this or that. No, that's not the issue. The issue is Democrats have the issues on their side and they have reality on their side. And the people on the other side are voting for a lunatic, a dangerous, reckless, racist lunatic. And they voted for him 3 fucking times. Let's examine how that happened. What brought us to that place?
Including Mitch McConnell letting the Democrats do his job for them.
Yeah.
For him. Pretending that could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's and there's just such a much, much longer examination and exhumation of the past that has to happen to understand why we're here so that we can fix what we're here. It's very basic. Look, if you're going to do a liver transplant or a kidney transplant, step 1 is diagnosis, right?
Right.
Well, it would be helpful to do an honest diagnosis of American politics about how we got here and not, well, Kamala Harris didn't go to, Michigan enough. Or the honest diagnosis starts about 40 years ago or 50 years ago. And that is a conversation that the legacy media and the conservative media and most of our Never Trump friends do not want to have.
Right.
Because all of the guilt is on them. This is what they did to this country.
Yep.
And either they're the 95% of the Republican Party who's happy that this country's fucked because they hate this country and they're happy with an authoritarian because they're fascists, or they're that 5% who want to take no responsibility, who want to crash on our couch and say, here's what Democrats are doing wrong.
Right. Right.
And I'm tired of it.
That's my point about Democratic messaging, and I don't mean to get on the Rachel Bitecofer bandwagon too hard.
It's a good bandwagon.
But seriously, I mean, Fox is trying to continually blame Biden in March of 2025 for egg prices.
Right.
And it's working.
Right. But it's
with that audience. It's working.
It's working with those audiences. With those
that
people.
Audience, yes,
right.
which is 49% of the country, apparently.
Right.
And Democrats in disarray is always available for a headline, no matter what. We'll just run that because both sides. And so our messaging has to be, this is Republicans' fault. This is Republican voters' fault. This is Republican senators' fault. This is Republican House members' fault. And this is Donald Trump and Elon Musk's fault.
And
if this happens to you, it's their fault.
And that's the thing that all the consultants or most of the consultants say, and wrongly so, you can never do. Blue guy, you can't blame voters. You can't go around blaming voters. The fuck I can't.
I'm blaming voters.
The fuck I can't.
And someone asked me that, how are you doing? How are you holding up? Someone asked me this week. And I said, I'm a little disgusted with myself because I've lost empathy.
Yep.
I used to, even a year ago say, look, I want everybody to vote. I want a democracy where everybody votes. And now it's like, no, you've lost the right. Voting for Donald Trump 3 times, you're not qualified
to be a citizen.
to be a fully participating citizen of this country.
Right. You're not. You're just not.
And I don't have sympathy for people who voted for Trump 3 times and are hurting in this economy.
No, I wish I did.
And I feel horrible about that. That makes me angry at myself because I should be a better person than that. And I hate people who have stripped me of that humanity.
Yeah.
Because I want to be a good person and love everybody and pray for all of humanity, no matter what.
Can I try to get on Bob Cesca's show by including a Star Trek reference?
Sure.
Okay. And I've used this one before. There's Chief O'Brien on The Next Generation. He's at the bar, right? And he's drinking with, I think, a Cardassian. And he's talking about their war experience because he can't stand them. And he's angry with them. And this is just some private. There's some guy who was adjacent to the conflict and didn't blah, blah, blah. It's just some foot soldier. And O'Brien says to him, look, before the incident or whatever happened, the defense happened, I'd never killed anything. You know, I'm the guy who caught butterflies and put them outside. But, you know, you guys came to this place and did horrible things, and I had to start killing people to stop you. I don't hate you, Cardassian. I hate what you turned me into. And it's, you know, I hate what you made me become. And that's the thing. I don't want to hate these people. I sound awful angry, and I've been writing for 20 years in a lot of anger. But,
happy blogiversary, Jeff Glenn.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's at the end of this month. It'll be 20 years. Actually, 20 years. Jesus. No, my arms are tired, Blue Gal. No wonder my arms are tired. But I'm disgusted with the fact these people can't stop being swine. That they fell hook, line, and sinker for the Rush Limbaugh, Newt Gingrich politics in the 80s and 90s. And they've only gotten worse every decade since. And I've given up feeling sorry for them. If they want to cut their own throats, let them. Let blood run up to my knees if they want to cut their own throats in their own place. The problem is we're shackling these assholes.
Yeah.
We are, and they are, they are dragging
their social security check is our social security check. Yeah. And that's the problem. Right.
They're willing to throw themselves into the pit as long as they can drag us in with them.
Yeah.
And that's a level.
That's why I hate to do it, but we have to start saying, well, Social Security and Medicare is a Democratic program.
It is. They are.
So that's why Trump is cutting it, because it's a Democratic created program. Medicare and Medicaid, Democratic programs.
Well,
that's why Trump wants to cut them.
The thing about Limbaugh and Gingrich that I've said before also is it worked. Their style worked. And this hope that it wouldn't, this continuing to reach out to these people as if they are fully adult, rational human beings who just are a little bit, racist around the edges, didn't work. And there's the last 40 years are a history of articles that if Democrats would just blah, blah, blah. And every time that article gets written, Republicans move further to the right because they don't want to cooperate with us. They've been calling us baby killing monsters and commie scum for 40 years. The base believes that shit. You can't reason with people like that. You can only make sure they never, ever are allowed in power again. And that's what's happened. All the horrible shit we wrote about them turned out to be true. We weren't crying wolf because there was no wolf. We were crying wolf because there was a wolf and nobody wanted to look at it and admit that
his name is Elon Musk now. Yeah.
And so, well, moving on
but I just want to add one more thing, which I've said many times on this podcast. When money becomes speech, money becomes the only speech. Look what's happening.
Right.
And Bill Burr, who, by the way, please go watch his hour-long special on Hulu. You might not agree with all the political stuff he says right in the first 5 minutes, but his comedy special is so personal, and there were multiple times during it that I just went, oh my God, wow, he's talking about his personal struggles and personal life and making it hilarious. But, he says, here's Elon Musk. He's the one on podcast now saying Elon Musk is doing this because he's the richest man on earth.
Right.
And the host, when he was on the Breakfast Club, I think the host was like, well, how do we fight that? He's the richest man on earth. It's like, you got to take your power back.
Yeah. Oh, we can.
You got to not let money be speech.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what you got to do. And we got to undo Citizens United because And that's, I just told you guys to bake a cake with no other instructions. I realize
Right.
that,
Yeah. But where it does
it's going to
start?
be an uphill climb. Yeah.
It starts with refusing to take down the "everyone is welcome here" sign in your classroom.
Right. Exactly.
It starts with things
it means
like
going
that.
on marches. It means calling your congressman every day. It means doing all the things. Yeah. And giving $5 to a news outlet or a political outlet that, all of them, all of these independent ones that are trying to tell the truth, they need your money.
Or also investing heavily in Bosco Coin, because Bosco Coin will save us all. It's
if you haven't met Bosco, you haven't been following this podcast enough.
Bosco Coin, is it an NFT? Is it STP?
Here's our most vocal cat.
Yeah. He has a lot to say. Now, how we segue from that over to Trump invoking the Alien Enemies Act, I don't know, but I'm about to do it, so hold on. He invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to justify the rapid deportation of Venezuelan nationals accused of gang ties. And if you hear the story behind this about, a person in the art community having tattoos that had nothing to do with them, and where they are now, the way they were treated as enemies, and he thrown on a plane, flown out of the country, dumped into a dystopian hellscape camp for nothing, for no fucking reason. This is an unprecedented move outside of wartime. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg, however, blocked the deportations, ordering flights already in transit to return. But the Trump administration refused to comply, and now we're in a constitutional crisis.
Mm-hmm.
White House officials argued that the judge had no authority and claimed the deportees had already left U.S. jurisdiction. Trump's border czar, scumbag Tom Homan, dismissed the ruling, saying, "We're not stopping."
We're not. And he also said, "We don't care what some judge said."
Yeah. And
this is when House members and certain Republicans started talking about impeaching the judge. This is when the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court actually came out and said something.
He pooped himself.
That's inappropriate.
Yeah. That's inappropriate.
Yeah. Right. This is from Task and Purpose, quote, Arlington Cemetery website drops links for Black, Hispanic, and women veterans. The website for Arlington National Cemetery unpublished links to lists of notable graves, walking tours, and educational material pertaining to Black, Hispanic, and women veterans, as well as some Medal of Honor recipients, unquote.
Yeah.
This is just an insane bigotry governing this country.
Yeah. It's find all, delete all. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Just massive. And this is straight up Orwellian, straight up memory holing, burning things, whitewashing and airbrushing people out of history. Trump signed an executive order to dismantle 7 federal agencies, which is flagrantly illegal. According to the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which oversees the Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, and Radio Free Asia, the order directed agencies to cut operations to, quote, the minimum presence and function required by law. Over 1,300 journalists at Voice of America were placed on administrative leave, effectively silencing the U.S.-funded media outlet that has long countered authoritarian propaganda abroad. Trump loyalist Carrie Lake, now a senior advisor at USAGM, called the agency not salvageable, like her face. While former VOA director Michael Abramowitz said the move silences a vital voice for democracy.
Trump turned a speech at the Justice Department into a spectacle of grievance because he's Grandpa Syphilis.
Mm-hmm.
Attacked prosecutors as scum and vowing to expose his enemies and expel the rogue actors and corrupt forces from government. He called the classified documents case against him bullshit. Yeah. Praised Judge Aileen Cannon for throwing it out and called the FBI agents who investigated him part of a corrupt group of hacks and radicals.
Yeah.
So he's got that going for him.
Yeah. Trump threatened to revoke all federal funding to Columbia University, unless it meets his demands, including placing Middle Eastern, South Asian, and African Studies departments under academic receivership for 5 years. The ultimatum also requires banning face masks on campus, revising student discipline policies, adopting a new definition of anti-Semitism, and overhauling administration practices. An open letter from 5 Columbia political...
I'm sorry, it's overhauling admissions practices.
Sorry. Overhauling admission practices. Thank you, Blue Gal. An open letter from 5 Columbia political science professors ended with this, quote, originally established as King's College, Our institution was reborn in 1784 as Columbia College in the wake of the American Revolution. Since then, our nation's bedrock system of civil liberties, hard won in war and protected in our Constitution, has guided our mission. Columbia will remain the college of no king, unquote.
EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin announced the closure of all environmental justice offices and the rollback of over 30 environmental regulations, calling it the most consequential day of deregulation in American history.
Well, now for some local news. This is from the Illinois Times, which is the free once-a-week giveaway paper to be found around the state's capital. This is Damon Boatwright, who is the president and CEO of Hospital Sisters Health System. You'll hear it referred to as HSHS throughout the article. Quote, attention across the nation is rightly focused on potential massive and drastic Medicaid cuts under consideration by Congress that would imperil health care for nearly 80 million of our most vulnerable neighbors. Low-income families, expectant moms, children, and senior citizens, as well as individuals with disabilities. Rural hospitals caring for communities in America's heartland, which are already struggling, will be further devastated by these cuts, making access to quality health care another unobtainable element of the American dream. You know, those rural hospitals that serve big red counties full of Trump voters. The 13 hospitals that make up the Hospital Sisters Health System serve small communities throughout central and southern Illinois and northeastern Wisconsin. The populations of these towns often reflect higher reliance on Medicaid, especially among children. According to the McCourt School of Public Policy of Georgetown University, 25% of children in Macon County, Illinois, home to HSHS's St. Mary's Hospital, rely on Medicaid. In Brown County, Wisconsin, home to HSHS's St. Mary's Hospital Medical Center and St. Vincent's Hospital in Green Bay, nearly 32% of children rely on Medicaid. In Sangamon County, where we live, that number is nearly 22% of children. 22% of children in our county rely on Medicaid. Who among us has not been vulnerable at some point in their life or knows a relative, friend, or neighbor who has? Public opinion polls bear out this sentiment, with the nonprofit health policy research group Kaiser Family Foundation, KFF, reporting 2/3 of U.S. adults have some connection to Medicaid. Additionally, more than 3/4 hold a favorable view of the program. The human toll of these cuts would be unconscionable, and the economic impact devastating. We support the dignity of work, yet potential work requirements for Medicaid participants appear counterproductive, since KFF research shows that nearly 2/3 of Medicaid adults are already working, usually at low-paying jobs that, surprise, either don't offer insurance or do so at unaffordable rates. The overall result of these proposed changes, states would be forced to dramatically scale back their Medicaid programs, hurting enrollees and impacting practically every hospital across the country, including those HSHS operates. Medicaid accounts for 24% of inpatient admissions at Illinois hospitals, according to the Illinois Health and Hospital Association, while program makes up 14.5% of total gross patient revenue in Wisconsin hospitals, according to the Wisconsin Hospital Association.
62,000 nursing home patients in Texas will be on the street without Medicaid.
Yep.
I always use that quote.
Yep.
Now, this is just a regional report from the Midwest, but it's the case in every state. And some Republicans are aware of this and nervous about it, and yet maintain their racism, Driftglass.
Yeah.
A Republican operative close to the White House was reported saying, quote, Medicaid is not just for Black people in the ghetto. These are our voters, unquote.
I don't know what to say. I mean,
there's no words.
It's right out there in the open. Yeah, we're racist. Yeah, we're trying to hurt poor people, black people
in the ghetto.
But
in the ghetto, because I'm sorry.
This could hurt.
I know the Elvis song "In the Ghetto."
Yeah. This could hurt our idiot white voters who are also poor. Don't you realize that? And of course, Trump doesn't give a shit. He's already been elected. It's done. It's over. What are they going to do? Unelect him? And finally, Minnesota Republican State Senator Justin Eichhorn, co-author of the bill labeling Trump derangement syndrome as a medical illness, was arrested Monday in Bloomington, Minnesota for allegedly soliciting sex with a 16-year-old girl.
And he's not a drag queen, Driftglass.
No. Did a drag queen make him do it? Did a trans kid doing sports make him do it?
And last week it was the Trump spiritual advisor.
Oh, yeah.
Who got caught trying to solicit sex from a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And his lawyer went to court and argued that the 12-year-old tried to seduce the spiritual advisor.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Blue Gal. There is such a thing as Trump derangement syndrome. It's called being a Republican who voted for Trump.
Yeah. And not a drag queen either. Yeah.
No?
Hey, guys, feel free to write to both of us at proleftpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Do not privatize the U.S. Postal Service, and go postal unions. Letter on the air unless you say otherwise.
Don't forget our gourmet coffee guidelines. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. Or, again, invest ridiculously in Bosco Coin. It's going to skyrocket in value. I can virtually guarantee it. This is not charity.
We promise you, Bosco Coin is utterly worthless and always will be.
Yeah, but it might skyrocket. It might skyrocket in value. You don't know. This is not a charity. This is an amazing investment opportunity for you, the listener. So if you can spare $5 real a month or more, please spare $5 or more a month at patreon.com/proleftpod. And the other thing you can do, which a lot of you are doing, which we deeply appreciate, please share the show on social media. And if you love this podcast, get someone else to listen. That's how we grow organically, and it's working. And we thank you so very much for doing that.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties would be thrilled if Beltway reporters would dig at least as deep as a fucking litter box and buy Bosco Coin and join the financial revolution.
Bosco Coin boogie, let's ignite. Dancing through the blockchain night. Purrs of fortune in the air. Bosco's groove is beyond compare. Shiny whiskers blowing